Hard hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
All right, welcome into the Garden Report, a special edition of the Garden Report. John Zannis, Bobby Manning, Noa Dalzell, and of course, what? Who's that guy? It says Baylor. Yes, it is. Baylor
Scheierman.
Of the Boston Celtics. Rookie
How we
no
doing?
longer. I guess we will call you what? A rising second-year player? Is that what it is? You're not a rookie anymore, right?
You guys know more than me. I couldn't tell you. Whatever you guys want to say, I'm good with.
I was going to say, Jordan last year said he wasn't not a rookie anymore until the next season started. So I think under their rules, from what I remember, you're still there until the summer ends.
Yeah,
Whatever.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, that's fair. It doesn't matter.
You're no longer you're no longer a rookie when you have other rookies that you can boss around. So as soon as the draft happens, then they're the rookies, and then you graduate.
That's a good rule too.
Let's have that as the
Yeah,
cutoff.
that's fair.
Generally speaking, again, whirlwind sort of year, I'm sure, just in terms of you entering the league and, trying to get acclimated, joining a team that has title aspirations, and then watching it kind of, crash and burn at the end in a way that I'm sure nobody expected. Let's start at the end rather than the beginning. You're a couple of weeks out from it. How are you processing still? Like, the NBA finals are starting. You're looking at these teams here, and are you thinking, man, how are we not one of them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's tough being, on the other side of it, sitting here. I haven't really watched much of the playoffs since we honestly, got eliminated. But like you said, being on the outside looking in and knowing that, believing that we could definitely compete against these teams and, could have won a championship this year. It's always going to leave a sour taste in your mouth, but that's kind of what's just motivated, at least myself, going into this offseason is just, continuing to improve and get better to get us back to, that spot in the future.
And Baylor, for you, the playoff run, obviously we were in the locker room all year, and I'm curious from your standpoint, like, what changes in the playoffs? How different is it from the regular season? How different is it from previous playoff runs you've been a part of? Like, did it feel super intense? Everybody keep to themselves more? Like, what's the vibe of being on that team for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it didn't really feel like there was much of a difference. Obviously, everything heightens, and the pressure is more, bigger, you could say. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still you approach the game the same way in terms of, you have your scouting report that you're going over and you have your principles that you're trying to do for each guy. And then outside of that, you're just going out and playing. I would say like the biggest difference, honestly, being in the playoffs for the first time was just obviously like the way the game's officiated. I feel like that's really the biggest difference of anything.
Did you know that was coming, or was it a little bit of a surprise? Like when the Orlando Magic series started, were you like, oh my gosh, this is so different? Or was that something that you guys were kind of preparing for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, something that we were prepared for and that we talked about. But for me personally, it being my first time, I didn't necessarily know what exactly it was going to look like until, that first series. And obviously, like you said, that Orlando series, that was like a football game, super physical, and not a lot of fouls called, especially like a lot of the fouls they called in the regular season, they just didn't call. So I think that was definitely, surprising for me.
Let me hit on the real quick, Baylor. Just the way the season ended there, a lot of things happened. Obviously, you have the hole that you were in, you're trying to climb back from with the 0-2, and a lot of people looking back on the series would be like, that's where we lost it. Like, you don't lose those games at home, or even if you win one of them, it's a different ball game. Yeah. But just then the way that it goes down, really kind of starting with game 4, where that lead is slipping away, headed towards possibly a 3-1 deficit, and then Tatum goes down. At that moment, what are you thinking and feeling when that happens?
For me, honestly, the first things that were popping into my head was just, thinking about Jayson and what the injury could possibly be. And obviously, thinking about the worst and hoping it's not the worst. I think that was kind of my first, thoughts when I saw him go down. And then obviously, you know, you get to the locker room and you get the news of what it is, and you obviously feel for him, and then you kind of just flip the switch to, how can we put our best foot forward to continue to try to put pressure on him and continue to, lengthen out this series, and you know, kind of be in that gray area of, you know, when we're fully healthy. Obviously, wasn't expecting to play really much, but then when people start going down, you start to think, now I really got to, be locked in and prepared because there's a chance my number could get called. So I think all those different emotions kind of played a factor.
How much do you factor injuries into how the season ended? Now, we don't know exactly the severity of Jaylen Brown's injury, but he was limited to some capacity, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't 100% himself.
Yeah.
Then Jayson goes down late, and Kristaps was dealing with that, weird thing that it kind of came out of nowhere. So you're almost sapped all of Kristaps and what percentage of Jaylen from his normal explosive athletic self. And that has to play a toll. I'm sure you don't want to make excuses, but if you had to kind of put a number on it, what percentage would you say, of how the season ended had to do with those injuries? And if you were a fully healthy team, are you still playing right now?
I mean, I feel like that's the story every year in the NBA is, whatever team is, the most healthy, when it comes to playoffs, is a team that normally has a great chance to win. And, obviously I'm not a big what if guy, but obviously, when we were 100% healthy, I mean, we're a very dangerous team, a team that's, very hard to beat. And so, I definitely think, all those things played a factor, but at the end of the day, like you said, we're not going to sit here and make excuses about it.
Yeah, and Baylor, you mentioned Jayson going down there. That's a guy you got close to during the year, a guy who helped you through your rookie year. How difficult was that for you personally to see that? And I know you guys got to see him a couple of days later at the hotel. How difficult is it to regroup after seeing something like that? All you guys are so close to him. You play with him throughout the year. He's so important to you guys. But you still have a game to play that next day. And like you mentioned, you're thinking, all right, am I maybe going to get a shot here with some other guys hurt or things like that? So you're trying to think of all those things at the same time. How would you explain what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, I think it was just a new experience. It's something that I've never, kind of been through before. And like you said, it was tough to see him go down. And, you know, a few days later, obviously, it was great to see him and see him in good spirits. Like I've said before, he, the ultimate teammate, and always, giving me confidence to, just play how he knows I can play. And so, like you said, just a bunch of different experiences this year that I've never experienced before. But I think, just looking back and reflecting on it, it's gonna, help me throughout my NBA journey.
Yeah, and he's going to potentially miss a lot of this year coming up, and who knows who's going to be on the team, who's not here, and it's pretty early in this off season. But how much do you think about they might rely on me a little more next year, given that Jason's probably not going to be out there for a lot of it, and who knows what else is going to happen here? Like, how much does that play into your summer now as you prepare and think of some of the things you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think really any of that stuff plays a part into my summer and how I'm approaching things, regardless of how anything would have happened. If we would have won the championship again or not, I'd still be approaching this summer the same. And that's just, how can I put myself in the best position possible to be a guy that can get some consistent minutes and help, impact the game consistently on a consistent nightly basis next year.
And then Baylor, shifting to some fun stuff. Who would you say is a particularly close teammate of yours? Like the fans, I think that people try to guess based on like who sits next to who on the bench. But is there like a surprising person you got close with, or any surprising friendships in general that we don't know about that you could share?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about surprising. I mean, I think me and Derrick White have a really, fun relationship, and you kind of saw that a little bit in the social media world a little bit. But the first time I met Derrick was actually in Nebraska. He was in Lincoln for the Colorado versus Nebraska game, and I was back, and I went to the game, and one of my high school buddies texted me and was like, "Derrick's here." And so I went to where he was at, and that was like our first time meeting, and we hung out. We hung out all day, went to the game together, and that kind of started our relationship. off really well. And so, he's a guy, obviously tremendous player, but then obviously just really enjoy being around him off the court as well. So I'd say, that is probably one that sticks out more than most.
But let me ask that real quick on the practice battles. Is there a moment you get to the NBA? Okay, you play summer league. There's some pros there, but then there's a lot of people who are trying to make it. And then you get into practice and you're playing against Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all NBA future Hall of Fame style players. Is there a moment where you were like, oh, I can do this? Like, was there something that happened in a practice where you're like, I can play with these guys. I'm okay here. Or was it more the opposite? Like, oh my goodness, this is hard.
Yeah. I wouldn't say there was really necessarily either of the two. I mean, I remember, a practice and training camp, we're kind of scrimmaging a little bit and I get checked in and I think I scored like a couple buckets right away coming off the bench. And I was like, this is fun, but I don't know if there was necessarily like a specific moment either way where I was like, oh, like this is going to be bad or this is going to be great. Like it was kind of just even keeled, kind of up until the season, honestly.
Everyone's got their Joe stories, the speeches he does, the, mindset things he talks about. I'm sure you got to know him pretty well this year. You've played for Greg McDermott and all these different coaches now. How would you describe the experience playing for Joe, and what kind of coaching style did he use with you? Because I know he had a different style for everybody on the team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Joe. I honestly I really respect Joe, and I like his bluntness when he coaches, and that's something that that's kind of how he just coached me. Just very blunt and very just telling me how it is, and how it was going to be, and I can appreciate that because then there's no miscommunications about, what's going on or what to be expected.
Yeah. Was there a moment that stands out from conversations with him just being blunt, him being, honest with you,
I mean, kind of right after training camp before the season started, I kind of had, I had a meeting with him and he was pretty much like, listen, like, I don't really like rookies. So, you're going to have to battle this year. And that's kind of how it is. And I was like, all right, that's fine. All right. So
How hard is that to get
one,
into that?
That's one that sticks out.
How hard is it to get into that circle of trust with Joe? Because, again, he's got his guys, he's got his rotations, he's playing his thing, and you're like, hey, look at me. I can play too. Is that challenging?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a challenge, but I think, you just have to be ready to take advantage of obviously the opportunities you get. And like you said, once you get into that, circle of trust, that's where you want to be. But, obviously I knew coming into the year that, opportunities were going to be limited with bringing everybody back from a team that just won a championship. But like you said, I was ready to, make an impact when my number was called and was hoping my number was going to get called. So.
And when you had that big game, like I think the 20-point game against Brooklyn, did it feel like this kind of like breakout moment? Like now everybody in the world can see what I'm capable of. It was at the Garden. I thought it was one of the best Garden environments of the year, but like, what was that? What was that game like? And do you still think about that game, or is it like that just contained to that night?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I really think about that game much anymore, but I definitely think, at the time, like obviously I had a pretty good game a few games before that playing Philly. But the game wasn't as close, obviously, as the Brooklyn one, and kind of being able to push the lead out a little bit in the fourth quarter before I came out, and kind of like you said, I thought the Garden was definitely rocking that night. It definitely like that stretch of those two games definitely gave me, a lot of confidence going into the remainder of the season. That obviously, I can do it, and I never really didn't think I could do it. Obviously, it's just a matter of time, honestly, and it's definitely a game that I mean it's a lot of fun to look back on and think about, but I don't really do it too much, that often, honestly.
Baylor, you might have noticed in your first year in Boston that Boston media tends to overreact to both the positive and the negative. But as far as that particular game goes, everyone got really geeked up, and I'm going to say we on the Garden Report might have, gone a little overboard, in
I don't
terms
think
of
we
like,
got
wait,
overboard. You could feel it in this building that like his life was kind of changing in front of us.
well, not overboard, but we got a little excited and we thought, wait a second. What if
Yeah.
Baylor gets more minutes? And what if this turns into something? Because again, a rookie typically also one drafted later and drafted onto a winning team and a veteran team that has title aspirations. The chances of making an impact or being a rotational player throughout the year and into the postseason is smaller. But when you see flashes like that and everyone, kind of lights up the way they did, then your mind starts to go towards, is this found money? Like, is this guy? What if Baylor starts doing stuff? Did you get in your head that like, hey, maybe I can kind of crack this, or maybe I can earn myself some playoff minutes when you started to play a little bit more later in the year and started to get results? And then were you disappointed it didn't happen? Again, we get it. Playoff rotations are tight, but did you think maybe I get in here and maybe I can do something and make a mark?
I mean, like you said, at the end of the day, I was just trying to control what I could control, and every time I stepped out on the court, I tried to play as hard as possible and kind of just leave a flair and leave a imprint on the game. And I felt like the last 2 months of the season, I put myself in good position to be someone that Joe could call on and trust to go in and execute what we're trying to do. And like you said, I understand the playoffs are, even a more shortened of a rotation, and obviously disappointed that, I didn't necessarily play as a lot, but I also understood, the situation, and that's just, more motivation going into the off season to continue to get better and continue to put myself in position to be there, in the future.
This show, as always, is powered by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Turn your sports opinions into real cash with PrizePicks. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Perfect time to sign up today if you haven't already. You've got basketball and hockey playoffs nearing the end stages. All you have to do is download that PrizePicks app, use the code CLNS to get $50 in your account when you play 5. That's it. All you have to do, play a $5 lineup, 50 instantly in your account when you use the code CLNS. You don't have to win. All you have to do is play 5, and that is that. Looking ahead to Sunday's basketball playoffs, game 2, Indiana Pacers versus Oklahoma City Thunder. I got to tell you, I love what's going on here with the Pacers. I think based on what they did, surprising everyone to come back and win game 1, people might be expecting an OKC blowout in game 2. So I'm looking at this right now. Tyrese Halliburton, 16.5 points, more. I think that's a no-brainer. And I'm going to double up here with Pascal Siakam, 14.5 points. I think also more there as well. And if you want to add a third, SGA coming in at 34.5 points. I'm going to go less. I'm going to go less on SGA. I'm riding the Pacers wave here to what I believe is going to be, I don't know if a game 2 victory, but I do think they're going to remain competitive. I think everybody figured out it's a 48-minute team. They're not going anywhere. We're accustomed to seeing OKC come up with these big blowouts. And when that happens, what happens? Guys sit in the fourth quarter, and it's really hard to hit those more numbers. I don't think that's going to happen in this series. The Pacers do not quit. They're going to be there all the way till the end in each of these games. Want to remind you at home, you should always check the PrizePicks app. There's free squares to be had all the time, so make sure you check in prior to game 2. Once again, all you have to do for new users is download that PrizePicks app, use the code CLNS, play 5, get 50 instantly in your account. Once again, download the app. Play 5, get 50 instantly when you use the code CLNS. PrizePicks, run your game.
Yeah, and how do you think you got better during the rookie year? What put you in a position to play more later? What kind of things did you have to work on throughout the year? And, I want to hear about the rookie experience too on the Celtics, like we were mentioning earlier. Like, are you having to carry bags throughout the year? Like, are guys having you like run and grab them a coffee? Like, what's that like during your first season?
Yeah, honestly, like I thank the Lord every day that I was drafted to the Celtics and the group that we had, because they were great in terms of that. Like they really weren't like didn't make me do anything crazy. Had to bring cards to the plane. Guys would text me for a coffee to go get a coffee before we went to the arena, like little stuff like that, but nothing like nothing insane. You see, like nobody popcorned my car. No one, made me get up at crazy hours of the night. Like it was a pretty smooth experience. And honestly, I'm very thankful and grateful for the guys that they, kind of, you know, made the transition smooth and didn't necessarily have to do all that stuff. To be completely honest.
There's got to be one guy though, right? There's got to be at least one person who's poking at you a little bit. Rook, is there someone on the team?
I mean, if there wasn't really anybody crazy, if there was somebody, it was always, it's kind of Payton, and he was just he honestly just did it
Wow.
as a joke. He would always bring it up as a joke, just kind of like hinting at different stuff. But honestly, he didn't really make me do anything crazy either. So.
I did want to ask a couple more things about it. Somebody had mentioned here that you wanted to get into, just the entire thing about Boston experience. What was it like just literally being in Boston, coming from where you came from, and, going through, just here I am. And I don't know if you want to call it a big city. Some people might think so. Some people, might still view it as a small town. But what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, it was different for sure, growing up in the Midwest, and right now I'm sitting in my hometown that has one stoplight in it, so
What is it?
it was
5,000
definitely
people, Aurora?
4,000, yeah.
4,000. Okay.
4,000 people. Yeah, 4,000 people. But I mean, it was a good experience, honestly, and especially, people talk about the winters being cold, but I didn't think it was that cold. I mean, the winters in Nebraska, I would say, are like 10 times worse than they are in Boston. So like that wasn't really a big adjustment for me. Everyone was telling me that when I first got there, like, oh, the winters are brutal, and I was like, I don't know. I'm trying to think what else, but I really did enjoy the city, and especially when it started to get warm out and like the Red Sox games, like I really enjoyed. I've been to a few of those and really enjoy doing that. And there's a bunch of different things you can do in the city. The food's really good. So like overall, I really enjoyed it. And I'm just obviously it was my first year, and I was kind of back and forth between Maine and Boston a lot, so I wasn't necessarily there a lot of the time. So I'm definitely, still looking forward to continue to, getting out in the city and exploring different things.
Like you said, Baylor, you're home now, back with family, friends, all that. I know you're golfing a little bit, that's doing some stuff to just unwind, but I know it's tough for you to stay out of the gym too, with the way you work. What are some of your goals for the off season, now that you're getting back into the weight room and all that? And, is there anything the team has told you they want to see you do now? I know you'll be back in Boston soon for the summer league workouts. Like, what are some of the goals and things you're trying to work on this summer?
Yeah, well, I think, just continuing, I'd like to gain just a few more pounds and try to keep that on. But other than that, just continuing to, keep my body in good shape. And then obviously on the court, been working a lot, obviously worked a ton with Craig this year and continuing to work with him, but, definitely working about, changing speeds and different finishes around the rim. Cause, obviously I am a shooter, but I feel like I can, do a lot of other different things. And so continuing to just keep those parts of my game toned in, and then continuing to get better at shooting off the move and shooting from distance as well.
We talked about how weird it was, kind of the way the season ended relative to the expectations the team had for itself. But now you've kind of got this very strange off season where nobody knows anything, right? You have a new ownership group coming in, and you have this ominous second apron luxury tax situation, new CBA that everyone's been talking about, which presents a lot of real challenges for teams trying to keep their core group together. Nothing is certain, but there's a chance that there is a lot of movement. There could be a lot of guys you played with this year who might not be there. What's that like for you, not knowing what's going on with that? How weird is it to think that you join this team and you get together with them all, and there could be, it could kind of be ripped apart. I mean, again, maybe it won't, maybe a lot of it'll stay intact, but you're hearing names of the types of people who could be on the move. What's that like just for you, having to kind of live in this weird, world of uncertainty, and also not just for the team, but relative to your role and what that might be next year, not even knowing who's going to be here and what you're going to be asked to do?
Yeah, it's weird. I think, honestly, the hardest part of it all is really just like you said, spending so much time with these guys over the last, 10 months, you really start to, build and form relationships, and then, all of a sudden, like, it could just be, they just won't be here anymore. Um I think as far as like basketball goes, like I've said before, it's really just controlling what you can control. I can't really, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what, anything of who's going to be on the team or what's going to happen. But the only thing I can really control is, the work I put in and just preparing myself and putting myself in a great position. And then everything else, the chips will fall where they may.
Are you following up with guys and talking about it in the offseason? Is there a group chat? Is there a sense of angst with some people who are kind of like, oh man, I hope like my phone doesn't ring and I find something out, once the season ends and everything starts getting crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. It's still only been a couple weeks since obviously the season ended, and
Yeah.
guys are taking some time to be away and just be by themselves, and we spend a lot of time with each other throughout the year, so it's always good to get away. So I haven't really had a lot of conversations about those necessarily situations with any of the guys.
And Baylor, last thing for me, did you have a welcome to the NBA moment, whether in practice or in a game or a guy that you matched up against? Like, was there a moment?
I think it was honestly, in training camp we were playing and I got, switched on to Jason and, kind of the elbow and, he does his little bump fade and he did the same move on me. I played good defense, but he made the shot and I was just like, yep, that's welcome to the NBA. I mean, the shot making in the NBA is ridiculous. Like to the random person like watching the game, like they think like people don't try to play defense or this and that, but dudes are really just that good.
Is it the shot making or the athleticism that jumps first for you when you're watching these guys at this level?
For me, it's shot making. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's what it is for me.
Okay, so before we wrap, I want to go rapid fire on some things. You can answer as short as you like. You can elaborate if you want. Maybe we'll kind of poke at you and follow up, but let's just get into it. You don't want to be labeled just a 3-point shooter, correct? But you like to shoot the three, and you will, and you'll jack them from deep if you have to. But you've got a few guys who'll do the same thing. So let's throw it together. Sam Hauser, Payton Pritchard, and you in a 3-point contest. Who's winning that?
Got to take myself.
Is that who would Vegas take? You still think who's the favorite?
Who would Vegas take? Well, they wouldn't take me. I don't know. Vegas don't know who I am. Vegas don't know who I am. I bet they take Sam.
Baylor, who would make the worst roommate of all of your Celtics teammates, and who would make the best roommate based off what you know?
Yeah, worst roommate would be D White because he argues about everything. He's never wrong.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna think the best would be. I mean, probably. I mean, I know I said like all the. I'll probably say Al. I'd say Al. Simple guy. Probably goes to bed pretty early.
Yeah, but you got to deal with his 5 kids.
Yeah, but they're not. That doesn't come into play here. It's just consider it's us two.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's your player comp, Baylor? Who's the guy you most want to be? Play like. You
Or your
prepare
game
yourself
is
for
like.
your game.
I mean, obviously, a lot of people say like Joe Ingles. I like that comp. I like watching Austin Reeves play. Max Strus, all those guys. Who do you think my comp is?
Is there one player? I'm going to throw something crazy out. Is there one player that you'd be embarrassed to say I'm kind of like that guy because they're a star, and you're like, if I start comparing myself to this person, people will think I'm, arrogant. But like, is there anybody you're like, I'm kind of like that guy? Because I've got one in mind, and if you don't say it, I'm going to say it.
I don't know. I don't have anything in mind for this question.
There's one
so
guy.
You can go ahead and say.
There's one guy in our chat that can't stop saying he's got a lot of Luka in his game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely watched him a lot, in high school and in college, and like everyone obviously, 6'7" White, so they think shooter, but honestly, I think my passing ability might even be my best quality sometimes. So
Right.
that's one that's I mean, if you're gonna say it, I'm not gonna argue, but I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't say that
Yeah.
off the rip.
Because the Ingles one I feel is more superficial, kind of that height,
Yeah,
the white dude shoots, but
yeah,
like I said, there's more to your game than that, and somebody's like, there's a little
yeah.
Luka in there, so I was throwing it out
Should I
there.
say Rondo after that pass?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I watched Rondo a lot. Rondo, Pistol Pete, Jason Williams. A
Yeah,
lot of that have
yeah.
a little bit of flair to it.
Can watch Jason Williams passing highlight reels all day long. Another rapid fire question here for you. You mentioned, guys you're close to and this and that, and the possibility the team might look different next year. Finish this sentence. I will be heartbroken if I never get to play another minute with blank.
Can I say everybody? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
But one guy, even just
Uh,
forget about play, like showing up to work and they're not there anymore. That would kill me.
I feel like there's a lot of guys I could throw out. I'd probably say Jrue Holiday.
Yeah. How
I'd
come?
probably say Jrue. Uh, I mean, we kind of continued to build a relationship over the course of the year, and dude's dude's just funny. He's funny, and he's a good guy. I mean, obviously, been in the league forever, and has accomplished some crazy things, and you wouldn't necessarily know about it just by meeting him. He's a very down to earth guy, and obviously, I feel like we have a lot of those on our team. But yeah, I'd say him.
If you're the best football player on the team, who would be number 2?
That's a great question. The thing is, everybody says they're good football players, but none of them actually played. Like Payton swears he was so good, and I was like, "Well, when did you stop playing?" He was like, "Oh, seventh grade." I was like, "Oh, okay, so you didn't play." Uh, I mean, Jalen. I feel like Jalen would be pretty good. I'd probably put him at number 2, probably. Sam played, so I put him high up there as well.
Who's the best golfer on the team? You got to see them all in Arizona, right? On your
Sam,
trip out there.
Sam. Yeah, Sam's the best golfer.
By far?
Yeah, he's better. Yeah, for sure.
All right. I'll ask you this: if something ever starts up on the court, there's a little beef. You're about to throw hands. Who's the one teammate you have right now that you really want to make sure is standing behind you?
I don't think I'm ever throwing hands, but if
Who do you want to know has got your back? Yeah.
I'd probably say either JB or Al. Al's got 5 kids, so he's got that dad strength,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd probably say him or JB.
Who is one NBA player if you could jersey swap with anyone? Who would it be?
One jersey swap. I'd probably do Steph.
How come?
I do Steph. Steph
Yeah.
Curry. Obviously, in middle school, high school, when the Warriors were having their little dynasty, watching him play and just, how skilled he is and how good he's become. And, he's not the most athletic. He can't jump the highest, but, obviously he's the best shooter ever, but there's a lot of other stuff that he does well. And just the way they play. So I'd probably say Steph.
100 men or one gorilla? Where are you in that debate?
I don't know. I'm going with the gorilla.
Yeah.
I'm going with the gorilla.
Yeah. How many?
I think that's a stupid debate.
I agree.
Yeah. You talked about Boston having a lot of food. Would you ever eat a vegan brownie?
No. That sounds horrible.
Why?
That sounds horrible. that sounds horrible.
I promise you it's not horrible. I promise.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure
sorry.
I just offended somebody, but
No,
sorry.
you didn't offend anybody. No,
I think
I'm
you
vegan,
offended
and
one
they bring
person.
this up every show. They bring up every show that being vegan sucks. So
It's not. It sucks.
I gotcha.
I don't mind that you're vegan. I just don't want you to peddle your vegan brownies on me. That's all.
Sneaking a vegan.
Yeah,
brownie
sorry.
in
We
there.
let you. You walked into that one. That's our fault. That was that was a little bit of sabotage. Baylor, thank you very much for coming on the show. We're excited for what year 2 brings. Are you planning on playing in Vegas?
Yeah. I'll be there. I'll be playing.
Okay. All right. We will see you in Vegas then. Enjoy your offseason. Up until then, once again, Baylor Scheierman just closing out his rookie season with the Celtics, expecting hopefully big things coming up in year 2. Thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Baylor.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks.
having me.